Good morning, comrades. You're listening to WHI, so this is unacceptable behavior.
You were going to get them for free, and then you're just so greedy.
We're spilling lemon heads in the studio. We can't even get through now they're on the gross floor.
Robert did not tell me when he went to our local gas station that he was getting lemon heads, and so really, it's his fault. This is all his fault.
The original sin lies with you, apparently.
Are we actually?
We're recording it.
Okay.
So anyway, let's do bring us in 3, 2, 1. Good morning, comrades. You are listening to WHIV LP New Orleans 102.3. This show is called Good Morning, Comrade. Good morning, comrades. How are we doing today?
I'd be better if I had more lemon heads.
Why'd you drop the lemon heads I gave you on the floor? You dropped them on the floor because you were reaching and grabbing.
All right, it's getting very contentious in here.
Grabbing from the poor. We were just trying to give you the labors of.
From what I understand, any sort of criticism is
that's
now
sexist.
It's just straight up misogyny.
Why are you attacking your wife Erin in a misogynist way?
Women?
Don't even try that, because just like Bernard, I'm king of the posting wars, and I know never to back down, never apologize. No matter what.
And never log off.
Like Shaggy said, it wasn't me. Even if it wasn't me, because when you start apologizing online, and everybody knows that online is real life, then
if you die online, if you die online, you die in real life. That's right. If you die while you're posting, you die in real life. So anyway, we got Jeff and Robert and Aaron in the studio. What's happening, folks?
Well, the world seems to have been imploding.
Yeah, it's good to be in the same room with y'all recording again.
Yeah, it is.
I feel like we pod faded a bit, but it's just because of the holidays and everything's just crazy.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, my mental health has been bad. So, but here we are.
Why'd your mental health bad? Do you want to talk about it, or?
Well, I mean, I feel like I just for all of you who can't see me,
She's gesticulating in every direction.
Wild gesture to indicate the world.
She's doing so, but she's also very tired, so she's lazily gesticulating in every direction.
I slept literally all day because that's what MLK would have wanted for me.
Yeah. We could talk about speculating on what he would have done.
Yeah.
I actually do want to spend some time on that.
No, I just have been bummed. I know I say this so many times, but this is like an actual true thing. I need to get off Twitter. It's like ruining my life because my default is that everybody is reasonable and has good intentions, and that if you just like show them that
not on that
website, that they will come to a better conclusion. And just seeing so many white women who are getting their PhD just be like, just use the most woke language to be so incredibly reductive and disingenuous and like racist themselves.
Right.
Really,
let's dive right into this. Let's go.
Since it is, and I'm sure you can barely hear me. But since it is like for a couple more hours now, MLK Day. You're listening to this on Tuesday. We're recording on Monday. I just want to get this out here for the people in the back that might. I know I'm preaching to the choir. If you're listening to the show live or you're listening to it over the radio or on
wherever, yeah.
Like obviously you're on the team that can sit with us. Like you might have some weird takes, but everybody is allowed to have weird takes.
We don't have weird takes.
I don't have weird takes. Again, going back into never apologize, never back down. I call it the alt-left playbook. We're going back into that. Is that we all can agree that like MLK was a socialist and he was completely political and he wasn't a guy who was just like, let's everybody all get along. Like that was never his intention. That was never where
the point was never nonviolent.
Yeah,
the point was winning.
The point was winning. The reason why I say this, it makes me so mad. I mean, it does every year. Like weird right wingers always like quoting MLK or like I've seen libertarians quote MLK. Like he definitely was a socialist, and so I had to go.
He was a free market entrepreneur, like fundamentalist.
Oh my God, no, that's like a legit take. I've seen people have.
And it's not a legit take; it's a stupid take.
No, I mean it's legitimately real. Like you're not like making a joke. Like we're not making like that. The man has been so whitewashed and like had his actual message, his actual things that he like lived fought, like, and was murdered for, like, just completely whitewashed over. And I don't know.
Yeah,
It's not even a racial connotation when I'm saying whitewashed. I mean, it's completely like
they
the ruling
de-radicalized
class.
them.
Yeah,
And
de-radicalized it.
I was actually just thinking about this today because there's like, I mean, if you go back and if you look, I mean, Martin Luther King was constantly like supporting labor unions, and he was always like the March on Washington was the march on Washington for jobs and freedom, right?
Correct.
And so the last campaign that he was working on when he was murdered was the Poor People's Campaign. He opposed the war in Vietnam. I mean, you say it every year at the same time, like at the same time every single year on Martin Luther King Day, you have to get up and you have to say, actually, Martin Luther King was not like a respectability policy. He was not Bill Cosby.
I mean, what's really setting me off this year is that I had to go to an MLK function for work, and it was cool, whatever. And there was like some goofball hack, like local news dude asking people like, "Oh, what is your dream for America?" And I was like, I hope this guy doesn't try to talk to me. I really do. And I heard him say to some woman, he said, "Oh, make sure whatever you say, nothing political." I was like, really, don't come. And like right on time, this guy just eyeballs me, comes running towards me. And he's like, "Oh, do you want to talk?" I said, "I heard you, man.
You're a black guy."
Yeah, exactly. That's what it felt like. He's like, "I heard you talk about, you said you didn't want anybody to say anything political. I don't know how to talk about MLK and divorce him from politics, because that's what he died
can't
for,
do it.
is a political movement." He goes, "Well, we shouldn't be doing that because you know how people are, and we got to look." I said, "Stop."
What does
man.
that even mean?
I know. I go, "Stop." I'm not that's even worse. I'm not apologizing for this man's message of why we're here. I mean, I don't mean to ruin your day, but I don't have time. I don't have time. Like Bernie said to New York Times editorial board, "I'm allergic to the BS. I don't have time for this." I'm at work too, bro. Mm-hmm. Like I'm on the job right now and having to deal with you. Like, no.
Unless you think we are, twisting MLK's words to suit our own agendas, or that we're interpreting things that he was more leftist than he was. Here's a direct quote from Martin Luther King Jr. "We must recognize that we can't solve our problem now until there is a radical redistribution of economic and political power. This means a revolution of values and other things. We must see now that the evils of racism, economic exploitation, and militarism are tied together. You can't really get rid of one without getting rid of the others. The whole structure of American life must be changed. America is a hypocritical nation, and we must put our own house in order." That he said that in 1967, excuse me. And yeah, that sounds pretty radical to me.
Yeah, I would recommend everybody check out the Cornel West piece. He posted it in 2018 in The Guardian. Maybe we can link that maybe on our social media. But he wrote a piece called Martin Luther King was a radical. He must not sterilize his legacy. It's always great to hear from Brother Cornel West. I'll just kind of go a little bit into that if y'all don't mind.
Yeah.
So, neoliberal revisionists thrive on the spectacle of their smartness and the visibility of their mainstream status. Yet rarely, if ever, have they had a mumbling word about what would have concerned kings, such as U.S. drone strikes, house raid, and torture sites, or raised their voices about escalating inequality, poverty, or Wall Street domination under neoliberal administrations, be the president white or black. The police killing of Stephen Clark in Sacramento may stir them with the imperial massacres in Yemen, but the imperial massacres in Yemen, Libya, or Gaza leave them cold. Why? Because so many of King's fans are afraid. Yet one of King's sayings was, "I would rather be dead than afraid." Why are they afraid? Because they fear for their careers and acceptance. And acceptance by the neoliberal establishment. Yet King said angrily, "What you're saying may get you a foundation grant, but it won't get you into the kingdom of truth." So essentially, what he's basically all of U.S. foreign policy right now, Martin Luther King would be against it.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think it's up to us to sit here and try and interpret his legacy. But it is so disingenuous to me that there's so many people who are using the language, like I said, of wokeness and just ignoring anything that doesn't fit their narrative. Like there's been going around kind of this idea that, you have to solve racism before you can deal with any sort of class issues. And while I definitely agree with obviously agree that, racism would exist separately from classism, just the way our society is structured. You also can't divorce the impact that poverty has had on racism and how people who are experiencing racism when they are also poor have less recourse than people who are not poor and experiencing racism.
There's a multiplier effect. Like race has a multiplier effect in a certain sense, not maybe like directly across the board, but it like people from more marginalized identities are more acutely and more, in certain senses, more broadly impacted, but the raw numbers are a little bit different. At the same time, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but at the same time, poverty is felt like through the poor people, no matter of any race. It transcends all of the race. It's just that there's disparities in the percentages, right, of the different identities, be it racial identity, be it sexual identity, gender, all the way down the line. Now, the thing is that people need to be like there are material differences, at least in the scope, or at least percentages of people who are coming from those backgrounds who are in poverty and the intensity of that poverty, etc. However, they all experience that poverty nonetheless, and there's a commonality in that.
Well, sure. So I don't think any of us are arguing against that. And
no, but I guess what I'm arguing against is not you, but the people that you're arguing against. I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's just it's like, but it's. You can't even have that conversation with them, though, because it's like
it's not real.
It's not a real. It's not a good faith argument because they never offer any sort of alternative.
No,
and I know I've talked about this before, but it's like I've been to a lot of anti-racism training, and I got so frustrated with so many of them because we stop. It's like, okay, well, now you recognize your privilege, and like, good luck.
We win.
And I'm like, okay, but like, cool. So now now I know what my privilege is as much as I can know. But like, what am I supposed to do with that? And they're like, well, you'll figure that out. And I'm like, but I still don't know. And like, it wasn't until I started getting involved with groups like the DSA that they were like, okay, this is how you can materially put your privilege in action to, help others. So I just, this idea that like somehow acknowledging racism or being like the loudest person to call racism out is like the best thing as opposed to the people who are like, doing stuff.
So
I don't know.
So I guess I
mean, just to say, like, and I want you to keep going, but I want to try to break this down to its base because this sounds like a lot of the arguments, like not arguments, but the discussion we had when we had Ben Burgess on. I just want to say that, like, if I was to sound clip this, we can do both. Like, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. It's not. It's not a zero-sum game at all. It's just like, so. Yeah, say what you're gonna say, but I'm just like, this is a good this is a good place. This show is a good place for nuanced conversation. But just like when you're talking to somebody who has, and like Aaron says, like you guys both say, like it's probably disingenuous, like depending on the person. But like you say, yeah, we can do both.
Yeah,
like one doesn't cancel out the other.
Yeah, well, and I was just going to go on and say, like, you do have to determine when you're having a conversation with somebody who's acting in good faith, and when they are not. When you get like the Zerlina Maxwells of the world who are just like decided, or whoever the woman that said that like Bernie Sanders makes her stomach churn, or if you support skin crawl, or if you support Bernie Sanders, you must be a sexist. They're not there to push for any kind of justice. They're there to protect the status quo. They're there because they are served by the way things are. They're in the positions that they're in because of the way that the way that things are. So they have an interest in maintaining that status quo, keeping it intact, and using language like the language of racial or social justice, and weaponizing it to maintain that status quo, and making everything not about the movement, like the broad movement of people, of working people, of poor people, etc., but it's about making it about individual purification and making sure that you say the right things, and if you don't, boom, you canceled.
Yeah, that's something that I have been finding really fascinating about the whole conversation. Is there is a lot of talk about kind of personal victimhood, and it's often by pretty privileged women. It's
isolation is what it is. It's putting it one-on-one, isolating, and then
but it's like this weird thing where, because like the personal is political, and I do agree with that, but it's it's like being extrapolated way too far. Like I've been seeing a lot of women say that they feel triggered by Bernie Sanders or triggered by Bernie supporters. And they'll talk about that, and which, could be 100% true, because triggering is a deeply individual response to trauma. And so when you're treating someone who has experienced trauma, you are helping them learn how to manage the triggers and then hopefully lessen the triggers. You are not changing the world so that the triggers don't exist anymore. And it's this weird thing that they think, okay, well, I personally find this to be bad, and therefore I must be correct, and everyone else is just
make space for me,
mean-spirited. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And it's this, I don't know, it's this really weird dynamic, because it is, I have generally been seeing it come from white women, but specifically white women that used to support Kamala, so they're very much using the terminology of oh, other people are racist, or, I am supporting, I am inclusive, I'm this, I'm that. But I'm if you actually read what they're saying, it's pretty tough. There was one where a woman called Nina Turner Goebbels with bad hair. That was, and then
bad hair?
And then all of the responses to that tweet were yes, queen, and clapping emojis. And I was that feels incorrect and racist and anti-Semitic. And when I said something about it, I was told, well, it's definitely not anti-Semitic. And I was okay, cool. Well, glad we we covered that.
And plus, it's again, if these people who claim that they're doing the woke thing or whatever, but it's a who said this? It was was it a white woman?
It was a K-Hive.
It was a white woman that's saying that a black woman.
I don't know who it was.
Okay, so
white or not.
Okay, so I don't mean to go into make speculation.
Here's some examples. Here's two real world examples I've been kicking around in my head thinking about it. So you talk about this, this whole woke culture of and we'll get to. Obviously, you don't know we're bearing the lead. It's the Elizabeth Warren trying to shiv Bernie, and now everybody's well, it's time to, well, not everybody, but just woke social media, the quote unquote the woke Democratic Party is why don't you believe women? So that's where we're getting to.
Okay, so we're gonna get on the other side of station ID. You listen to WHIV LP New Orleans 102.3. So let's go ahead and set up what happened. If we're gonna go ahead and do that.
Well, let me get this out of my head real quick because it'll go away. But just two things that pop into my head real fast are the examples of this are, remember 8 years ago when Michelle Bachmann was running for president, where all of woke social media and all of woke media, it was a gag on the Daily Show. Now it was a double whammy. Not only came for her
Not the Daily Show
for legitimate reasons, because she's a legitimately valid person, but they were ad hominem attacks, and then they came after her husband as saying that he was secretly gay. You remember that?
Yeah, vaguely. I do remember that she was one of the. She had a lot of wild shit going on.
Right. But but my point is though, all the things that just supposedly don't fly on the woke left.
Yeah.
When they can be targeted against other people, and then the other. Oh, you're well, it's Michelle Bachmann. She's a really bad person. Oh, okay. Yeah. So when AOC endorses Bernie Sanders, all of a sudden it's
They're coming for him.
Woman of color and a person of color and a woman. All of a sudden she's trash too now.
I've seen that happen to again another woman of color on the left, Bree Joy Gray, who's the press secretary for Bernie Sanders. She gets so much crap
They're really awful
all the time.
But it's this weird dynamic that if you don't subscribe to their very rigid set of views on race and sexuality and gender,
it's very
then
puritanical.
you are. But yeah, I want to read. This is on my Twitter timeline right now. This is a person who has over 20,000 followers, is getting their PhD, is a liberal dem. But they tweeted, if you say that the Democratic Party is tantamount to an EU center-right party, you are not only erasing xenophobia, but also the role that POC have played in preventing the Democrats from flirting with nationalism in the way some center-left and left parties in the EU do. So essentially, this person is saying that if you question why the Democratic Party is not further to the left, even though much of its base is further to the left, then you are somehow erasing the contributions of people of color and being xenophobic. That's a disingenuous
That's to say nothing of like the actual material things the Democratic Party does, which is essentially just play their job. Their entire job is to say, actually, we don't have any ideas. We're here to sort of defend what's here from getting worse. We're here to slow the degradation of our social programs from the Republicans who are coming at us really hard. We don't ever play offense. We only play defense.
I think that's super generous. Mm-hmm. Like I would say, in my most cynical, I would say they're just there to be an opposition party and not to actually do anything.
No, they're the good cop.
Just say, yeah, exactly, the good cop. Just say, here's your choice, take it or leave.
Yeah, I was actually just having a conversation with somebody about this, about how, yeah, exactly. You're immediately starting in the position where you're not even making demands. You're starting from the point where you're making concessions, and that's you don't have anything that you stand for in terms of actually advancing anything. Like the ACA is another. I mean, we talk about the ACA all the time. That was a program that didn't actually democratize. It did in the sense that like Medicaid got expanded, but it basically like solidified the insurance companies as their permanent and forever. We're never going to move beyond it, and people are just going to always be cashing in on people being sick, right? And so instead of pushing for an actual program where you would have guaranteed coverage by the society that you live in this case it would be the federal government, it was like, no, that's off the table. Obama gave it up immediately. I think Rahm Emanuel got in his ear and he said, actually, don't do that. That doesn't
what is the deal with Rahm Emanuel? Like, why is he still around? Why was he ever around?
Because he's got power, he's got connections, and he gets money. He gets money.
I get money.
He basically he's the representative of the financial, like, Wall Street wing.
Every time I'm like, there's someone's like Rahm Emanuel, I'm like, oh yeah, that guy.
And plus, he's like a party operator, like a party operator in a certain sense. I mean,
the worst. I don't know. I just like Jeff and I were having this conversation kind of offline this weekend about kind of the Democratic Party and I know like
not even nationally. I mean, like local, we were talking about in Louisiana because Aaron and I are both running for Democratic Party local office.
Yes, that's correct, aren't we?
Right out there.
Mm-hmm. Woo! Mm-hmm. So, I'm running in District A, and you are running unopposed. Is that correct?
I'm sashaying. I'm not running.
I mean, yeah, barring
anyway,
some deep skeleton in your closet, you're going to be the nominee, huh?
I checked in my closet. The skeletons
no
are they're well hidden.
Well, I know it's just so.
I'll keep them in my basement.
We talk about the DSA a lot on here, but I want to make it very clear to everybody listening that I was like very willing to work with the Democratic Party. And I like to make that clear just because they have driven me from the party. Like I did not start off anti-establishment. I started the Young Democrats in my high school growing up. Like I am a vote blue no matter who. I campaigned for Kerry. I worked polls for Obama. Like I've done it, right? Mm-hmm. I have done it. I've been involved. I've been a part of the party. I went to school for political science and international relations. Like I did it.
Real glutton for punishment, you.
I know. And that's why these arguments feel so disingenuous to me and the reason I kind of switched from the party is because in 2016, my ideals aligned closest to Bernie Sanders. I had deep, significant issues with Hillary Clinton as a candidate, specifically stemming from, and a lot of that I know it's not fair, but like her husband's positions on certain things, which she was involved with, and then also
she was just as much of an operator as he was. They were a partnership.
That's the thing. I'm like, it's somehow she's like a boss lady, but then when you suggest that, something she worked on with her husband, you're like, oh, why are you blaming her for her abandoned actions? I'm like, okay, everybody,
it's very selectively applied. I mean, if you want to just talk about her, if you want to just forget all that stuff about when she was first lady or whatever, and all the stuff that she was involved with then. I mean, you can basically just say that she was the person that advocated for the invasion of Libya, right? And she literally was on TV and she said about Muammar Gaddafi when they murdered him in the street, which I got no love for Muammar Gaddafi, right? But she basically said,
you're going to alienate our tanky listeners.
I got no hate. I mean, I got no, whatever.
I got no love, but I got no hate either. We're riding neutral on that one, huh?
Whatever. I mean,
No, No,
either
I'm
way,
just joking,
I know,
dude. Come
I know.
on.
Well, my
You're really
point-
seriously sweating this?
No,
Put
I'm
him,
not
put him on the
sweating it.
seat
No,
of Moammar.
No, I was basically going to say she came up and she said, like, we saw he died, that sort of thing.
Yeah, which is
basically
like a
talking
totally
mad trash about him
cool
being
thing to
dead,
say.
and basically saying like U.S. foreign, like she was hugely responsible for the invasion, the coup rather in Honduras, right?
Yeah.
She was
She was not great. She was like, she and Bill were both
was a
pretty
neocon.
close friends with Papa Doc Duvalier,
Papa Doc
in
Duvalier,
Haiti,
yeah,
who, if you're not familiar, please look it up. He murdered a
Haiti.
lot of people, like a lot of people. The way she spoke about her husband's accusers, who, if you look that up too, because I know we all know about Monica, and that was consensual, even though it was gross. But he had two
they
other
dragged
women.
her ass though.
Oh God, they did. But there were two
Anyway,
other women
we're now bringing back the drag Hillary hour.
Anyway, so I bring all that up to say I have a lot of issues with Hillary as a candidate, but just the implication that I was somehow like a gender traitor, which I got a couple times. The fact that I don't have my head, I'm not in the real world, that I don't understand politics, that I somehow I'm not part of the party and I never was part of the party, that my master's degree in social work is somehow not real, and that I'm a bimbo, an airhead. Like, I'm just voting for Bernie Sanders because I want boys to like me.
We're all bimbos
all
here.
of the things. And
that was Gloria Steinem.
That was Gloria Steinem, and it breaks my heart. It honestly breaks my heart because I love Gloria Steinem. And it's this idea. So, I mean, essentially, I kind of looked at the Democratic Party and I looked at the reaction that apparently I was all of these things because I was supporting a candidate who was closest to my ideals. And I was like, okay, well, they don't want me. They just don't want me here. Like, I am not welcome in the Democratic Party.
That is true, though. That is true. They don't want any uppity, like people who know what's actually happened, like that actually want change. They're there to prevent change. They're there to guard the left flank of neoliberalism.
Yeah, and it's just sad because we do live in it's a two-party situation, right? And it's
like a one party with like two factions.
I know, and it's like so frustrating to me because again, I'm also somebody who understands that I'm way left of center. I'm more left of center than many people. So I was even saying, like when we were talking earlier, like I don't begrudge A.B. Klobuchar and the A.B. Klobuchars of the world. I just don't want to have to vote for an A.B. Klobuchar every single time. I want somebody who actually, actually has my same viewpoints. And then if as a country we have decided that I am a lot farther left than center and like other people agree with someone else, then great, I'm willing to accept that. But I'm not willing to accept that when media trashes the left candidate,
right?
Or they just ignore them altogether. When apparently some local Channel 7 Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area affiliate. Who would you vote for? Warren, Biden, Klobuchar, or Other?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Other was winning by a landslide when we last checked.
and then when they tried to say like, well, this is how we came to that, they're like, well, Other could and this is literally what she says, and I quote, Other could be Yang or even Cory Booker. So that's where
Cory Booker, who is no longer in the race.
So it's Bernie plus nothing.
Yeah. Did someone call Cory? He looks like he's polling at 33% at this point.
I know. In California, it's a lot of delegates.
So anyway, to circle back.
Yeah, why are we talking about this?
So circle back.
Just for me to rant. I need this. Give me this. But
I got to put a bow on this part. And then we'll kind of like move it on after just kind of in another section. It kind of what you were just describing about like a woman in the Democratic Party or whatever that's sort of like getting that you step out of line, so you get sort of like castigated and pushed like extra, like you get vilified extra for being like a gender traitor or whatever. That so reminds me of what we were talking about last time about Natalie ContraPoints. And how she kind of got all this trash, even if what she was saying like was legitimate or what, even if you grant that, which I'm not necessarily willing to do, to like stipulate that what the criticisms that were being made of her were all legitimate and good faith. I'm not willing to make that stipulation. But if we just kind of like just set that aside for a moment, the abuse that she got online was just so
it was out of control.
It's just so much, and it's like it's hard not to see a comparison, like a parallel here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, you were listening to WHIV LP New Orleans 102.3. That was a fun time, a little ranty time. This is Good Morning Comrade.
I don't know. It's not been good. It makes me sad. It makes me sad for that people who know better and who have the stated ideals that they want to help are so disingenuous. Or I'm even willing to be kinder and just say that they're ignorant and uninformed, which is actually the kinder viewpoint at this point, because it's, I'd rather be ignorant than disingenuous, but I really don't think they are. I think this is a coordinated
they're there to
attack.
Yeah, they're there to create the realities, right? They're there to create the edges of what is possible. They're there to set they're there to fix the realities, and they assert Medicare for all will never happen. Why? Basically, if you examine it, then you see that it doesn't hold up. But if you just take what they say at face value and say, oh, well, I guess Medicare for all isn't possible, then, which most people will do when somebody in a suit or whatever, when it's an authoritative position who's got status, they're basically making an argument based on authority. It don't matter what the fallacy is. If people listen to it, they're going to roll along with it. What needs to be done is people need to be challenged on that. And that's the problem. People, they often go along without getting challenged. Anyway, let's move it forward to the debate. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it's like they just ignore facts, because, for instance, you brought up the Medicare for all, and the second largest physicians group in the U.S. has endorsed Medicare for all as the proper
not
system.
Possible. Not real. Not possible.
I mean, it's okay. Are we just not trusting the people who actually work in the industries that we're so terrified that they're all going to lose their jobs? Yeah.
Tom Perez says that it's not possible. Joe Biden says that it's not possible. Okay.
But the American College of Physicians says it is.
I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go in on Biden though, because he has been, and it finally.
Talk about the whole debate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just.
Finally. He is like Sanders, and to a much lesser extent Warren, significantly lesser extent. They are attacking Joe Biden for his entire career.
Which there's a lot. There's a lot there.
Well, his entire career of trying to cut Social Security and Medicare. 40 years, this dude's been trying to cut Social Security and Medicare, trying to find a way to make a deal with the Republicans to just completely betray the working class that he claims to represent.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a well-documented history. It's not like you could just Google Joe Biden, Social Security, and a bunch of stuff will come up.
And also, unfortunately, during the debate, this didn't come up. This has been coming up since the debate, because what happened at the debate, Robert?
I don't know. I mean, I figured you would go into it. But
okay.
Because I want to just rage out, but I figured you would set it up.
Okay, so I'll set it up. Last Tuesday.
The day, last Tuesday. The time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. And go.
So it actually started before that. Over the weekend, there was some kind of a letter that was supposed to go out to volunteers that had some fairly innocuous and factually based criticisms, I suppose. But it was mostly just a way to differentiate between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, to people who were canvassing or phone banking. So it was like a FAQ, right? If somebody asked me what to say when these volunteers get the question, well, why I like Sanders, but I like Warren too. What's the difference? The point was to say that actually Bernie represents the working class. He's got a documented history of it, and Elizabeth Warren has a bit more of a spotty history, just the gist of it, right? In terms of how forthright she's been and how representative of the working class, and her entire view of politics, which is that the most intelligent, smartest people in the room can all come together, and her supporters are disproportionately white and disproportionately
secondary education.
Yeah, well educated. And Sanders is based his entire campaign in mass movement and activating people and bringing them in and creating volunteers and building structures and organizing through that kind of a network, which is a very clear and factual difference. And then the response from the Warren campaign after this was posted in a Slack channel for volunteers, and it was taken down, was that literally Elizabeth Warren comes out and says, I wish Bernie would stop trashing me. I wish the Sanders campaign would stop trashing me. So anyway, fast forward to like the next day, which is like, I think Monday, the day before the debate, the Warren campaign comes out and says that in a private conversation that Warren and Sanders had, somebody leaked this to CNN. In a private conversations that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren had in 2018, that Bernie had said to Warren that Bernie did not think a woman could win and become president. And that was how it was reported by CNN. That was what it said.
Here's the part that's like was most ridiculous about that is that they didn't report any context, and I'm not trying to be like, well, have you read the whole book or have you listened to every episode of the podcast, guy? Like, I'm not even trying to say that. It's the reason why there has to be context there is because that statement on its own makes no sense. It makes no sense. Not even
just isolate
not even in a Bernie wouldn't say that. It makes no sense of two people even talking. That's like me saying, oh, actually, you know what? This just happened. So I actually had Elizabeth Warren herself. Like, you know how you can donate to Liz? Like, I've donated to Liz. She actually called me on the phone and said, is this Robert? And I said, yes. And then she called me the N-word. Like, on the phone.
Which N-word?
The N-word.
Wow.
And then after that, she said, have a good day, and hung up. Now, I can't talk about it anymore because privacy. You know, I want to respect her privacy, so I can't give you any more details about it. That's pretty much what her campaign was saying. That, oh, yeah, Bernie said a woman can't win, and we're not going to talk about it anymore because it was a private conversation. What sense does that? That doesn't even pass the slightest of smell test.
So it's messed up for a couple of reasons. One, no context, like you just said. Two, because I mean, so we can get into that first, but two, if this is a private conversation, how do other people know about it?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with like, oh, somebody told the staffers or whatever. The staffers are reporting second and third hand information. So yeah, they leaked this obviously bogus story, and on the debate stage, like, we're sitting there in real time watching like 1984 doublespeak, just like I was on my high school like forensics team, like debate team. The questioning that CNN had would not even pass like our high school teacher.
Well,
like the idea of like, go ahead, no.
The moment, I think I know what you're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
The way that the question was formulated initially, like the one of the moderators asked Bernie Sanders, did you, like, it was a yes or no, did you say this to Elizabeth Warren? Did you say that a woman couldn't become president? And he said no. And then literally the next thing that comes out of the debate moderator's mouth is to ask Elizabeth Warren, how did you feel when Bernie Sanders said
that's like 1984 hell world? Like, that is, like I said, that wouldn't pass. Like, why didn't you just ask him, when did you stop beating Jane Sanders?
The entire presumption in framing of the question was that he had done it, and
people laughed. People laughed because they knew how ridiculous it was. Like, that is going to stick. I mean, that's going to be one of those things that's just like it's going to be taught in journalism classes. Like, I'm sure Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks, who teaches a journalism class at UCLA, is going to like use that in her curriculum now. Like, it's so
blatantly
so absurd. And the reason,
there's a lot of believe women and all this other stuff kind of going along with it.
Well, I have two really like strong. I have three really strong feelings. Now, this first thing I want to say is complete speculation. Nobody has any idea. Nobody knows anything. But this is me just like wargaming, like in my own head. This is what I think happened. What I think was Bernie did have that conversation, and he did the whole like
conversation.
He had the conversation with her and was like, "Women can't win." No, he said women can't. But it was something along the lines of, "It's hard for a woman to win because America's sexist, racist."
Or it could even have been more innocuous than that. It could have been something along the lines of like Donald Trump will use the fact
absolutely.
Or whatever.
Yeah, we're talking the same thing. So that's what I think happened, and then what I think happens after that is, they decide to leak this weird thing, right? And it comes out, they leak it to CNN. CNN runs with it as goofy as it is. Fazeez Shakur, his campaign manager, first day it comes out, on record says, video, audio, this is a lie. It never happened. So what I think happened was Faziz got to Bernie, and Bernie was like, Faziz, I don't understand. This is what happened. I was trying to counsel Liz and say it's going to be hard because what we just talked about. It's hard for a woman out there. Blah blah blah. And then Faziz is like, Bernie, that never happened. And he was like, well, no, I mean this, Bernie. You never said anything like that. And he just finally went, oh, okay. Because what I think the game plan was, the Warren campaign never thought that dependable, honest Bernie can never tell a lie. He'll always give you the benefit of the doubt in any situation, would not stand on that stage and go, I never said that. And then once that happened, it jammed up the whole game plan of the trap they were trying to lay for him. Because as soon as he would have said, this is what I said, they would have been like, oh, here's Bernie. Misogynistic Bernie, hates women, and he would have been defending. They never expected Bernie Sanders to go on offense and say, this never happened.
Which he said, and he said it was ridiculous, and he said that Hillary Clinton had gotten 2 million more votes than Donald Trump. He went hard.
Right. So that's what I think happened. Now, my other point where I want to rage out is that you got to see exactly, and I did a solo show 4 or 5 months ago. Where I ran and raved about Elizabeth
Early
Warren.
GMC.
And this isn't and I told you so, but it was just trust your instincts.
This isn't I told you so.
No, it's not an I told you so. Trust your instincts, because you got to see exactly who she was. And I was like, Aaron and I have sat in the house and had conversations to where this is a sentence that's come out of my mouth. I almost wish Bernie Sanders wasn't running and just endorse Liz, and that way Liz could just get all his support and win, and we wouldn't be able to have this conversation about who's. Well, my thought was we wouldn't have to have this conversation about old white men. And then we could just all get behind Liz. Yeah, now we know that would have been hell world. That would have been awful, because you got to see where her loyalties lie, how she would govern right there. Going back to what you said about Joe Biden. Joe Biden, who I've
didn't get a glove laid on him.
I've been told by everybody on their son that she hates Joe Biden so much. Joe Biden is the reason she got into politics.
You said that on this show.
Yeah, I've heard this from so many people. When she gets on a stage with Joe Biden, I've said this too, she's going to tear him apart. When Joe Biden took credit for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and she just sat there and ate it,
and not the bankruptcy laws.
Say a thing. Didn't say anything about bankruptcy. Didn't attack. Had no words, no unkind words on fact or policy to say about her enemy Joe Biden. And then she goes after Bernie Sanders. She would govern like a coward. She would fold.
She'd be another Obama.
If she was a president, if she somehow got through Trump, which I didn't think would ever be possible, she would roll. She would put up no resistance, and nothing good would happen out of it.
Aaron, you got something?
I just had a pretty. I forgot. So when Elizabeth Warren first announced she was running, I was really gung ho, and I've talked about it a lot on the show. I signed up to volunteer for her. I was donating to her, and obviously, I did not get a refund because at the time I was fine with it. But I was very on board. But I'm someone who likes to take in information as it comes and change my opinions as I get new information.
Like a normal person.
Radical, very radical of me. But I just, and to be honest, I knew about the DNA testing. I had not really done a deep dive into her whole history with that. And just kind of a really quick, for those of you who don't know, she's from Oklahoma, and it's pretty common there, I think, for people to say they have Native ancestry. So I was like, whatever. But then she got a DNA test done to prove, because Trump kept calling her Pocahontas, and which is like,
this came up when she ran for Senate the first time against Scott Brown.
Yeah, and so she got this DNA test, and it blew up in her face because there's an incredibly long and prolifically racist history of blood purity testing for Native identities. And that was kind of a top down from the federal government policy. So the fact that a woman from Oklahoma who was a sitting senator in the year of our Lord 2018, didn't know about that history, was problematic. But then I did a little bit more of a deep dive, and it turns out she was considered to be the first woman of color tenured professor at Harvard Law School. So the actual, and she was cited in the hiring announcement for the actual first woman of color who was tenured at Harvard Law School. And as far as I know, Harvard has never publicly corrected the record.
Don't hold your breath.
And I will not. But that is deeply problematic. And I'm really tired of the no more old white men people just blatantly excusing somebody, just Rachel Dolezalling like all up over everything. And I don't know. But so I got it. All this to say, I got a text.
Rachel Dolezal lived the life a lot more than
Elizabeth Warren did. She was down for the cause at least. But so all this to say, I got a text message that was like clearly the hard ask. Can you volunteer for Warren Friday, Saturday, Sunday this week? And I responded, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm actually
this week?
Yeah, it was. I got this. This happened like last Thursday, I think. And I was like, "Oh, sorry, I'm a Bernie supporter now." And so then we did the whole. She was a great volunteer, did the whole back and forth. Well, can you tell me about what issues you care about? We had a very civil exchange. But I was like, listen,
Be nicer than I would have been.
He aligns further with more to my policies. And then I just don't trust her that DNA thing like makes me really not trust her political instincts. And honestly.
And what's her theory of change?
I'm sorry. It's like capitalism is fine.
It's reformable. I'm sorry. I'm jumping in and interrupting you. I'm jumping in ahead of you. I'm sorry. I'm talking over. I'm talking over women.
Yeah. Literally, I should be the only one allowed to talk on this show. It's the least you all could do. It's been a hard life.
Yeah, this show must be hard for you to do.
Life is hard. Okay, no more white men, and also no more Robert. Is my feelings.
Bye.
Bye.
At least half of Robert.
Rude. Okay, that problematic.
No.
Problematic.
But to Aaron's credit, I think when I read that, I actually retweeted it on the Good Morning Comrade Twitter account, which you all should definitely be following.
At Comrade Morning.
Yeah, Comrade Morning. As fun as snake emojis are,
and they're fun.
They're fun. That hurt. That hurt more than 1 million snakes. 1 million snake emojis.
What was it now?
No, her tweet.
Oh yeah.
I mean, not her tweet, her conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, even when I look through Elizabeth Warren's Facebook pages, and there's very few people who are just like, I'm one of those people. I think I've tweeted out something like, burn her campaign to the ground and salt the earth. But people who are just like, oh, I liked you. I gave money, but
I thought we were friends.
Yeah, I mean, it's not right what you did with Bernie, so I'm out. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was telling Aaron today, as like somebody who's worked customer service jobs, there's like a hierarchy of complaints. So when you get somebody,
how many times did you have to ask for the manager?
Well, no. Actually, okay. So it goes like this. The easiest person to deal with, as far as like turning a customer around and keeping them a customer, are people who want to talk to the manager, like Karens of the world. So how we can relate that is like the snake emoji people, like myself, who are just gonna rage out, because the idea is if you're raging out, you are emotionally invested, and you're arguing, you're yelling, so that person still wants to be there in that space. They want to be there. They want to. You can like make something happen for that person. Now the opposite side of that, as far as like the unhappy customer that you don't want to see, is the person that just goes, I'm out.
Not going to come back.
Yeah, and it's the person that doesn't leave a review on Yelp, the person that doesn't post, the person that just goes, this isn't for me, because you can never win that person back.
They're not invested.
They're not invested at all. So it's like, people who are just like rationally, and as much as I'm a reply guy, I'm a poster, but people who are like rationally like, you know what, this just isn't what I thought it was, I'm just going to vote for Bernie. Ooh, that it hurts.
It's a Sub-Zero,
It
just like ripping the
hurts.
heart out.
Yeah.
You can see the moment where Martin's heart gets
It's
shattered.
just, bro, yeah, because you can't even get mad at that person. You can't call that person a bot. You can't say, oh, they're a Bernie bro. They're irrational. They're crazy. It's a cult. They just don't want to sit with you anymore. Ooh.
I don't know. And a lot of Warren supporters are not doing her any favors because I can't tell you how many things I saw where it was because and then I don't know. Did we mention? I keep zoning out again, mental health issues, but
the thing that I saw somebody that was posting that was saying like in the conversation that Warren had with Sanders, she lived her truth or she told her truth about it.
That was like, Amber Tamblyn.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Who like apropos of nothing, like David Cross is like a very like leftist person, but also has been like accused of sexual harassment.
I don't
So
know
like,
that.
Like every comedian.
yeah, I mean all men. Hashtag yes all men again. But no, there's like this weird undercurrent of like paternalism in a lot of her supporters. Like I can't tell you because like in the afterwards when they were having a little bit of a heated mic'd conversation.
Yeah, didn't shake the hand, and
didn't shake a hand, and then
and Warren said that Bernie called her a liar.
yeah, it's
and
a
then
mess.
Tom Steyer's like, I just want to say hi to Bernie.
I love Tom Steyer, as it turns out, as much as one can love a billionaire. But I saw so many tweets that were essentially like saying that, Bernie was being very threatening towards her, that Tom Steyer should have stepped in to help her. And I'm like, hey, so that's actually insane. She's running for president. She's a sitting U.S. senator. She can take a heated conversation with a person she's been friendly with for a long time. Like, what are you talking? I was like, what is happening?
The default is that Bernie was the default. It was like a default like framing that Bernie was like being an abuser by.
Yeah.
Like,
so, I mean, there's that, but then there's also the default framing that she is by nature a victim because she is a woman. And I think that is a little bit of a difference between, I think, generations. I think, so the older generations have had to struggle against more things, and there has been more of a focus on you need to adapt to a masculine culture in order to make it, as opposed to kind of, I think a lot of younger feminists are like, why should we have to adapt? Yeah. Culture should adapt to us. So it's a philosophical argument.
Or create a culture that is inclusive.
Yes. And it's also kind of this idea that like, women aren't inherently more gentle or,
it's
more
the maternalism
or
thing.
Peaceful. Yeah. And and
this is after Warren was the one that came on the attack.
That's the thing. It really left such a bad taste in my mouth. I was like, okay, so you want me to vote for a commander-in-chief who you feel like you needed Tom Steyer to step in to save? Because that feels like maybe not the best choice to me. But
he just wanted to say hi to Bernie.
Who knows? I'm just a little girl. Huh?
I mean, I've seen talking heads on TV say like, I don't know. I have to believe Warren because there's possibly there's no reason why she would lie about this. LOL, what?
You're right. She did take huge losses in the polls.
You're right. You're right. She's just up on stage and running for president for funsies. She's not trying to win and amass power. It's so absurd.
Why are you trying to stop a woman from becoming president?
Why don't we just vote for again? Just why? Where was the support for Michelle Bachmann?
Where was the support for Sarah Palin?
Where's the support for Tulsi?
She's the OG.
No, that's for real. No, we're being flippant, but that's for real. And as much as we don't like Tulsi Gabbard on this show,
By
the way, Tulsi stepped up and defended Bernie.
Right, but like, where is this support for Tulsi? Whenever you hear
props where they're due.
Whenever you hear like, oh, there's no women, there's no people of color, and it's just all white guys, and then there's Tulsi Gabbard, like right there, being like, here I am.
Yeah, she's. I think she's Hindu. She's from the island, from like Samoan Island. I believe. I can't remember. Guam.
She lives in Hawaii.
She lives in Hawaii. And she's Hindu, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, because she's a Hindu nationalist.
Right,
and that's one of the reasons why we don't like her on the show.
I'm not a fan of that.
Anyway. Yeah, she is diverse. That is true.
She's a complicated figure.
She's diverse in bad takes.
Look, she can hang 10. She's got a white streak in her hair.
She does a lot of CrossFit.
She's probably more anti-war than most of the people in the presidential thing. The presidential campaign, but she's not anti-war.
I will push back on you because she is not anti-war in other places in the country.
I'm talking about more. So I'm talking about more than. She's more so than like Joe Biden, who was for the Iraq War.
I wouldn't even say that because she's just for war in a different way, and I'm not willing to give her that. Like, I think that cheapens how great Bernie's support or Bernie's stances on war are when
he's better. No, he's definitely better than.
Because there's only two candidates on stage who are good on foreign policy, and I'm like, excuse me.
No, it's really no. It's a different
It's
class.
Tulsi.
It's not. I'm not trying to say that they're the same. I'm just saying that there had to be somebody like that was less bad on that particular issue.
But that's the thing. She's not less bad.
Okay.
That's so. I mean,
I don't know if we're gonna agree on this. I don't know if we're gonna agree on this.
I don't want her in the anti-war camp because she's not anti-war. She's like pro drones. But I felt like I just summoned a dude. I felt like I said her name three times like Beetlejuice.
Yeah, we're putting
and I just summoned
away.
a demon up in here.
Anyway, we did not mean to get into that. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, the Tulsi thing, they are not like supporting Tulsi, but like Elizabeth Warren is the only woman running for president.
But that's the thing. They're not supporting. There are so many people there are a lot of Warren supporters.
Or Klobuchar.
But there are a lot of people who were Kamala Harris fans who are now like super team Biden. Mm-hmm. And I found have been the ones who have had the nastiest rhetoric surrounding sexism and gender.
Well, and you know what? I think that this was a play by Warren. The attack on Bernie was a play by Warren to get that crowd, the Bernie hater, like woke scold.
They don't
element.
like her. They don't.
Well, it didn't work, but that was the attempt, and it's also like again, I keep saying this, or I keep seeing this rather. I don't say it so much, but it seems to me that the not attacking Biden and the coming after Bernie strikes me, and it strikes me as like, is she just trying to make a move for like the VP for Biden? Because that's not an impossibility.
He's not doing that.
Bruh.
He's trying to make a move for something,
or she possibly is worried about getting called, Elder Protective Services getting called on her. She tries to dunk on Biden because he's losing it.
Perhaps. I don't know. Who knows?
Point is, before we go, we're almost out of time. Point is, all these people have been talking to us for the last 2 years now about blue no matter who. And Bernie's ahead in the polls in Iowa and New Hampshire. And I'm going to say this right now. He wins Iowa. He wins New Hampshire. That's going to lead him to win Nevada. Once he wins Nevada, that's going to lead him to win California, which he's way up. Then all the dominoes will fall. Biden's electability will go out the window. He'll no longer see his electability. He's done. And then since we're still on blue no matter who, it's time to make them people say, look, if you're really blue no matter who, stop posting on Twitter, stay out of the conversation, and just get behind. You must vote for Bernie Sanders because he is about to be the no matter who right now. And you either are rolling with us or all that stuff you're talking about, the hashtag resistance, we got to get Trump out, this and that. You've always been disingenuous, and we can't.
It always has been.
We know that, but they're going to have to face that. They're going to have to face that down because we're about to win this thing.
Please make these people
We're about to win this thing.
Please make these people eat that crow.
I get it, yeah.
Just make them eat that crow.
We're about to win this thing.
Make them eat the crow.
I'm a woman, and so any man listening, you owe it to me to make this happen for me. Or else you're sexist and misogynist. So
do it for women.
Do it for women. Do it for this woman. The personal is political.
Aaron speaks for all women.
And I personally feel if you don't support progressivism and leftism, then you're letting me down in a very sexist way.
All right, so you can listen to Good Morning. Oh, you got one more last thing?
No, that's it. I was gonna say real quick. It can't be both ways. It can't be either Bernie supporters through the election in 2016 and got Donald Trump elected, or we're just online trolls and have no power. It can't be. We can't be all powerful and have no power at the same time. If we're all powerful, then you need to get behind us. Mm-hmm. And if not, because I'm done bending the knee. I'm done making. It's time for the Democratic Party, to concede to us. I'm through with it. And then we're going to show you when Bernie wins New Hampshire and Nevada. New Hampshire and Iowa, and then moves on to Nevada. We're going to show you. It's time to come to us. We are done coming to you.
You can listen to Good Morning Comrade every Good Morning Comrade every Tuesday morning on WHIV LP New Orleans 102.3. You can also check us out online, goodmorningcomrade.com, at Comrade Morning on Twitter, Good Morning Comrade on Facebook, and all the other stuff. We love you. Bye.
I just side-eyed Jeff so hard.
Why?
Come in the morning.